Right, these are the text notes for the two poems by John Greenleaf Whittier, which from your text notes we discussed that the son of the Quakers had a little formal schooling, but was seriously devoted to social causes and reforms and very passionate about anti-slavery um, and abolitionist movements, published a lot in abolitionist newspapers and magazines. And so the two texts that we're going to take a look at are very much in that vein. So the first one is The Hunters of Men. And in this text, this is very basically a very ironical poem, and it's anti-slavery, written in the time when the American colonialization society was demanding that rather than emancipating African Americans, that free blacks should be sent back to Africa. And so we have you heard of our hunting or mount and glen through canebrake and forest, the hunting of men? The lords of our land to this hunting have gone as the fox hunter follows the sound of the horn. Hark, the cheer and hallo, the crack of the whip, and the yell of the hound as he fastens his grip. So what you have here is a fox hunt, essentially, where you have the horns and the hounds and the horses, where, that traditionally British, really, fox hunting was. But he is comparing the hunting of men by these people that were trying to chase these slaves, these runaway slaves down during a time, and he goes into Ichabod as well in the next poem, where the Slave Fugitive Act was passed, and he Daniel Webster was a powerful senator, and he was a proponent of the Slave Fugitive Act, which basically gave white men the permission to hunt down slaves, runaway slaves, and even if they escaped into free territories, they could be returned back to their master. And so here we have him describing the hunting of men, similar to a fox hunt. So we have that irony here. He says, "Gay luck to our hunters, how nobly they ride in the glow of their zeal and the strength of their pride." And then he lists several people that are included in the hunt of men: the priest, the statesman, which is a nod to the great Senator Daniel Webster, who was behind that Slave Fugitive Act, the saint and the sinner with cursing and prayer, the drunk and the sober ride merrily there, and woman, kind woman, wife, widow, and maid, for the good of the hunted is lending her aid. So all of these people that the priest, the statesman, the saint and sinner, women even that are joining in this hunt of these men. "Oh, goodly and grand is our hunting to see in this land of the brave, in this home of the free." Again, you see that ironical statement here in America. How goodly and grand are we that we're chasing down these slaves to make sure that they're returned back to their chains. Priest, warrior, and statesman from Georgia to Maine, all mounting the saddle, all grasping the rein, right merrily hunting the black man whose only sin, is the curl of his hair and the hue of his skin. Woe now to the hunted who turns him at bay. Will our hunters be turned from their purpose and pray? Will their hearts fail within them, their nerves tremble, when all roughly they ride to the hunting of men? He says, "Ho, alms for our hunter." This is glory and money, right? All weary and faint, wax the curse of the sinner and the prayer of the saint. The horn is wound faintly, the echoes are still, or cane break in river and forest and hill. Alms for our hunters, which he repeats multiple times here. We see it 1, 2, 3, 4 times before it is. This is the power and the glory that these men are receiving, this money that they're receiving for tracking down these slaves for slave owners and return, even freed slaves, and returning them back into slavery. He says, "Oh, haste, lest that doubting and fear shall prevail, and the head of his steed take the place of the tail. Oh, haste, ere he leave us, for who will ride then for pleasure or gain to the hunting of men?" So we have that very ironical look at slavery and how grand it is to see these men from all walks of life, the good and the lowly, even women, chasing after these men whose only crime is the curl of their hair and the hue of their skin. Let's take a look at the second poem in our set, which is Ichabod. I'm going to get 1 second so I can just change it over real quick. So this is the second of our John Greenleaf Whittier poems, Ichabod. And it is basically a criticism of the great Senator Daniel Webster, who Whittier once admired, and he was well admired by a lot of people for his works and his deeds, until he got involved with this fugitive slave bill, which was passed in 1850 by Congress. And so basically this act, this Fugitive Slave Act, required that slaves be returned to their owners even if they were in a free state. And it also made the federal government responsible for finding, returning, and trying escaped slaves. And so Whittier's once admiration of of um Daniel Webster really turned to disgust when he started championing this bill. And it's basically, the entire poem is just a mockery of this once great man. He says, "So fallen, so lost, the light withdrawn which once he wore, the glory from his gray hairs gone forevermore. Revile him not, the tempter hath a snare for all, and pitying tears, not scorn and wrath, befit his fall. Oh, dumb be passion's stormy rage, when he who might have lighted up and led his age falls back in night." This man who once, honestly, like a king, has fallen, and that don't cry for him, don't, this is something that he has done to himself. Scorn, would the angels laugh to mark a bright soul driven, being goaded down the endless dark from hope and heaven? Let not the land, once proud of him, insult him now, nor brand with deeper shame his dim, dishonored brow, but let its humbled sons instead from sea to lake a long lament as for the dead in sadness make. Of all we loved and honored, not save power remains, a fallen angel's pride of thought still strong in chains. There he's comparing those slaves to fallen angels, and that this is a result of what Daniel Webster has promoted, who is actively pursued and promoted, got passed by Congress. All else is gone from those great eyes. The soul has fled. He is now soulless. When faith is lost, when honor dies, the man is dead. Then pay the reverence of old days to his dead fame, walk backward with averted gaze, and hide the shame. So that whole is, he's referring to in the Bible, that about the story of Noah when his sons discovered him naked, and they walked with averted eyes to hide their shame of their father. And so this is basically his his criticism of this once great man, that he once had a lot of respect for, that has now just turned to just to disgust of him for his treatment, or his belief that the way that slaves should be treated. And so this is probably the first outsider, which is non-slave, opinion on this subject. Frederick Douglass had been writing very heavily at the time, who was a former slave. We had other former slaves that had written or penned about slavery. And so this was the first white, really, the first white non-slave owner's opinion on this subject. And it was highly controversial, as you can assume, at the time. And so it's very haunting. It's very beautiful. But this man who was once seen in high regard becomes this villain, and how that can change, how that can change, and you know change someone's opinion of someone over something so strong. Now he talks about death there. He says, when faith is lost, when honor dies, the man is dead. In a sense, Webster is now dead to him because he had proven himself to be a dishonorable man.